Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com. Today we're going to be talking about how to find targets when markets are at all-time highs. Now, if you're watching the markets today, the NASDAQ pushed into all-time highs again, and this is where things get a little bit shaky because we all know our trading strategy. We know where we want to get in, where we want to get out, our game plans and all that fun stuff. But when we're looking at a target and there's no structure above us because the market has never been there before, how do we find targets, right? What are our objectives? What are our projections instead? Well, since we don't have market structure to utilize in terms of, previous swing low, swing high, cluster support and resistance, any of that kind of thing, we have to instead turn our attention to projections and what we believe the market could potentially do. And we can still use market structure to find that information. So here is the chart of the NASDAQ, and obviously this is pretty darn bullish. This was all-time highs before we came into today, and we went pile driving through that. Now, intraday, what are some ways that we can potentially find some objectives? Well, there's a lot of different patterns that put out projections that you can use. Fibonacci's a good one, market structure like AB equals CD patterns, etc. Those are really good places to potentially focus. As an example here, for the NASDAQ, we had a spike up with A equaling B, and A to B equaling a potential C to D, right? So you have the A to B leg right here, and that's going to equal our C to D leg on that pullback. So an upside objective as a projection would be all the way up at the highs there, and that's going to be roughly right around 91.75. We haven't hit it yet, but that is going to be a market objective. Right. Now, a couple other things that we can utilize on some slightly slower time frames. You don't have to use the faster time frames. We can, and there are a lot of different ways to measure these types of things inside of here. But we could also look at larger time frames and say, well, hey, you know what? Maybe there's a larger objective. Maybe you're not an intraday trader. Well, guess what? We have the same thing. There's an AB equals CD pattern, and that puts a projection target way up here at around, let's see, what would that be? 74.22 half. So that's a huge target, right? Is that something that we're necessarily going to be looking for today? Probably not, right? I don't really foresee us hitting 7,400 today. It could. I mean, that is something that could happen, but likely? No, that's not really on the likely list. So we need to zoom in a little bit closer here and try to see if this gives us any other clues. So when we look really close into the market, well, what do we see? We do see an AB to CD potential, and that looks pretty darn close. We might be able to hit something like that today. But aside from AB equals CD, what else can we use? Well, we have Fibonacci projections and targets and all of that fun stuff. So let's look at this on a fib perspective, right? Swing low to swing high. We pull back not quite down to the 50%, but a very common target area past the highs on a Fibonacci level is going to be 23.6, and that's up at 7,315. Now again, is this something that we could potentially use today? Probably not going to hit 7,300, just like we're probably not going to hit 7,400. So that doesn't help us a whole lot. Let's get a little bit closer in then and see if something else gives us some clues. Market structure. Remember, a lot of folks look at this and say, well, there's not much we can do because there isn't any market structure up here. That is true. The market's never been here before, but we can still use previous market structure to give us some clues in, potential target areas. So let's look backward a little bit further here. Okay, so we have a nice bull channel working its way higher, and it's blown through the highs of that channel, and that's where we are right now. This is a double overshoot on the highs of the channel. So that gives us a little bit of an idea. The last time we broke above the channel high was right here, right? So that channel breakout was from that point to the peak right there. We can actually use this measurement to give us an idea of where the market might want to go today, right? So we start breaking out of the channel right there, and that creates a price objective right there, right? That's right above where the market is right now. Let me get a price 66.5. That's much closer. That is definitely feasible when we're looking at areas of interest on the markets, right? When we don't have anything else to work with. That's a great opportunity to look for a potential projection. Another type of market structure projection that we can use is a breakdown equaling break up. What I mean is we have a swing low breakdown. This is the final swing low that broke down before it went flying higher, so we can use this as a measurement as well. If we broke below the swing low by that much, we should feasibly be able to break above the swing high by that much, and that puts another price objective out there of right around 73 and a quarter. So as you can see, even though we don't have any market structure to necessarily work with for price targets or anything like that, the market is abundant with a bunch of different ways to measure up potential targets. So just because we're at record highs, which may not happen very frequently on the index markets or the futures as a whole, but you will run into that quite frequently on stocks. What about an IPO that just launched? It doesn't have anything to work with. So you have to start digging in really close and finding those minute little details to start projecting some targets out that you can utilize for that type of day. Something to think about when you're going into all-time highs, especially when it's something big like the NASDAQ. There's going to be a lot of people out there who have been long, they're getting long, they're whatever they're doing, they're hunting and looking for areas of interest. And because they don't have anything else to work with, then it's time to start going in a little bit closer, narrowing down and finding those small little minute details like we just talked about here. So hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully you think that's maybe something you can add to your tool belt. It's something that I utilize pretty much every day, even if we're not at all-time highs, but it's a great way to find potential objectives for the market to reach out towards. And if you're long, maybe a nice little target area as well. If you have any questions about it, as always, feel free to send me an email, jbrink@slingshotfutures.com. And until the next time, we'll see y'all later.